The pick is in.
With the number 94 pick, the Cleveland Browns select Dillon Gabriel, QB from Oregon, presented by LinkedIn. Here to break it down with me is Spencer German, the host over at Locked On Browns. Spencer, Cleveland, a lot of people are wondering, quarterback, where were they going to go? Where are they going to go with a quarterback? And it is Dillon Gabriel out of Oregon. It is not Shedeur Sanders, who is still on the board at the end of round 3. So I guess the question I have to start off here, why Dillon Gabriel, not Shedeur Sanders?
Yeah, I mean, the second part of that, I wish I had an answer for you. It seems like that's a larger topic than I think that goes beyond just the Browns facility, right? Like the Shedeur situation clearly is something NFL wide teams don't really have interest in picking him. So the Browns are part of that same sort of belief. I don't know that the shock from this pick is so much about, well, why didn't they take Shedeur? I think it's more, oh, they took Dillon Gabriel with a top 100 pick. Like, that's kind of weird. So yeah, I don't know that I have a good answer to the second part of the question in terms of like, why not Shedeur? Because to me, he's the best quarterback available. I think he's been the best quarterback available even as recently as a couple of quarterbacks that got taken previously. But the first part of it in terms of Dillon Gabriel, it just sounds like the Browns, for whatever reason, felt good about him being a guy that fits their system, and they liked what he kind of brought to the table. They said the height issue isn't something that concerned them when they watched his tape, and they feel like they can develop him in some capacity. Part of me wonders if this is because, again, we all saw what they did on night one. They are setting themselves up to take a quarterback next year. And so part of me wondered if this was a move to like, hey, let's get our potential long-term backup. But to use a third-round pick on a long-term backup, I think is a pretty not a move that I would advise people to do. So you asked me if the shock is worn off. I don't know if the shock is worn off. I think everyone is still a little stunned by what felt like it was a pretty good draft overall, sort of coming to a hold here on night 2 with a strange choice in Dillon Gabriel.
The quarterback group in Cleveland now has Dillon Gabriel. It also has Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett. Is there any shot, you mentioned Dillon Gabriel maybe as a long-term backup. Is there any shot he starts for Cleveland this season? Or is this more of a situation where they need to develop him, and if no additions are made, Joe Flacco or Kenny Pickett will be the guy?
I want to say no, that there's not a shot, because I think he's still such a raw prospect that there is so much room for him to improve that I don't think they would throw him out there and sort of throw him to the wolves that way. But there's always a but, Kevin, with the Cleveland Browns, that I'm sure you're well aware. First of all, like the last 2 years, I wouldn't have thought that we would have been talking about like Dorian Thompson-Robinson starting during his rookie season for some games. I wouldn't have told you last year that the season would have ended with the Browns playing Bailey Zappi in meaningless games at the end of the season. They played your Ravens, so I know you saw that firsthand. Like, so anything is possible with this team at this point. I've kind of subscribed to the idea that it's going to be an open competition first and foremost. It's probably going to that competition's mostly going to be between Joe Flacco and Kenny Pickett, obviously. But maybe Gabriel can throw his hat in the ring and put up a decent fight. What I think is most important though, and the thing that I subscribe to, is if you're taking a quarterback in this draft at any point, like you owe it to yourself to get some sort of evaluation from them next year. So we all kind of feel like we can tell where this season's going to go for Cleveland. Probably not going to be very good. I could see Dillon Gabriel late in the season being somebody they throw out there just to see what he brings to the table, see what he's learned in his first year, get him some live reps, and be able to sort of provide some sort of evaluation for the player that they took.
Now, you mentioned that Cleveland was having, in your estimation, a strong draft before this Dillon Gabriel pick. How do they get back on track in day 3?
Yeah, it's a good question. I did feel pretty strongly. I know there was some controversy around, especially trading back and then taking Mason Graham from Browns fans, because I think everyone was just so enamored with the idea of Travis Hunter. But in the grand scheme of things, there was nothing wrong with that. You got a bunch of draft capital. You set yourself up for next year, as I alluded to, and you still get a top 5 player in this class that can be really, really solid on the Browns defensive line and wreak some havoc alongside Myles Garrett. Taking a linebacker at 33, I think surprised some people, but on the surface, like that move does make some sense. It is linebacker is almost always a position of need for this team, so I get it. You get the Quinshon Judkins pick, a need for the Browns. I love that pick for them. And yeah, the Gabriel one sort of threw things off a little bit. But to get back on track, I think it's just about from here attending to some of these other needs that you have. I forgot to mention Harold Fannin, who was their a third rounder, the first third rounder that they took. I feel really good about that pick. Addresses another need for this team as well, and he's a local kid, which the fans will love. So it's offensive tackle from here. Still need to address the wide receiver position. That's still a massive need for them. Somebody like the part of the reason I was surprised by Dillon Gabriel as well was safety's a need for this team, and there was Xavier Watts sitting right there with a chance to be taken. So some of those positions I think sort of come into focus now. You only have a couple picks left going into the final day because you made 4 of your last 7 here today. But we'll see what the Browns do with it. I think they were on track, and I think it is going to take doing something that making a decision with that fourth rounder they have that gets fans kind of back on board and excited about the group they're bringing in.
For continuing coverage of the Cleveland Browns, subscribe to Locked On Browns wherever you get your podcasts.